The following is an Outdoor Channel original production.
Today on Adventure Guides, we'll take you to both sides of the globe, fishing in rugged New Zealand and scenic northern Michigan, to go behind the scenes of two of the most storied fly fishing guide traditions in the world. First up, we'll go to the fly fishing mecca of Canterbury on the South Island of New Zealand to learn more about outfitter Tony Pierce, who has lived here his whole life. Next, we'll fish the storied waters of the AuSable River in Grayling, Michigan to meet young bucks Dan and Andy, old-timer guide Jerry, and fourth-generation outfitter Jay Stefan on the river that's home to Trout Unlimited, as well as multiple generations of fly fishing guides. Join us as we meet the guides who've helped shape these fabled fisheries. Today on Adventure Guides Fishing Edition. Welcome to Adventure Guides Fishing Edition in Michigan and New Zealand. I'm your host, John Deach. Next on Adventure Guides Fishing Edition, we're headed to another great fly fishing destination on the other side of the globe. I'll meet up with the guides of the old AuSable Fly Shop in Grayling, Michigan, to learn the traditional way to fly fish for trout on these storied waters, including night fishing for giant browns during a hex hatch of giant bugs. Stay tuned for more Adventure Guides Fishing Edition coming up next. Welcome back to Adventure Guides Fishing Edition. I'm your host, John Deach. We're here in Grayling, a small town in beautiful northern Michigan, famous for its rich history of commercial and sport fishing, its legendary night hatches, and for old-school guides like Jay Stefan, whose family has guided and fly fished commercially here for 130 years.
I grew up on the AuSable River here with my dad, who was a guide, and my great-great-granddad moved here in 1879 on the river and started fishing, and that's when the guiding started. My great-great-granddad came here, homesteaded, and then considered himself a fishing farmer because he caught grayling commercially and shipped them to Chicago. And then when the grayling disappeared, they started to introduce brown trout and brook trout. Grayling more or less became extinct because the river was warmed up with all the logging. They took all of the heavy timber off from the country, and the whole area warmed up, the groundwater warmed up, and the river warmed up, and they require nice cold water.
The Stefan family certainly contributed to the disappearance of the grayling species at the turn of the century. However, their legacy is also a tradition of guiding that has been handed down to a young breed of guides like Dan Smith and Andy Partlow, who preach catch and release as gospel and belong to the new school of guiding here at the old AuSable Fly Shop. While these guides may be young, they still respect the tradition of guiding and fishing here from unique AuSable River boats that go back more than 150 years and are only found on this river.
The beauty of it is the guys before us, my grandfather, guys like Fred Bear, Bob Smock Sr., George Griffin, all these guys that tied flies that made this place famous. We're the next generation, and we're trying to carry on the traditions as best we can. This is my dad Tom right here. This is part of our heritage right here.
Yes.
Tommy. We're going to fish tonight for the hex, which is a fairly well-known hatch and something that has become a bit of a passion gets in your blood, and it's definitely something that I have become addicted to.
For old AuSable fly shop guides like Andy Partlow and Dan Smith, who both sample these insects as though they were fish themselves, this hatch is prime time. Soon after Andy and Dan put their AuSable River boat on the water, the night sky fills with what anglers in the know call the hex hatch, 2-inch bat-like bugs that trigger a nighttime feeding frenzy of trout.
You could hear them before you could see them. I mean, you could literally hear the vibration of the wings and the clicking in your ear. You just knew it was going to be spectacular. This is why we're here, man.
After hours of trying to get a big brown on, Andy finally hooks into a big AuSable beauty.
Go horsey.
The thing about this hatch is that this is the largest mayfly in the world. And for these river systems, it brings up the largest fish in the system.
Can't really get him too good. That's good fish. Nice fish, dude. Oh yeah, baby. Oh, that's fat. We worked hard for him too, didn't we?
That's the hardest fish we've worked on.
That is a good fish.
Up next on Adventure Guides Fishing Edition, we'll fly fish with Tony and the crew at Hunt Fish New Zealand, where we head out to Lake Heron in pursuit of more big brown trout in the historic New Zealand countryside. And later, we'll return to the AuSable River in Michigan to catch more big browns during a hex hatch frenzy, and learn more about the historic AuSable Riverboat when we return on Adventure Guides Fishing Edition. When we return, guide Dan Smith hooks another big brown during the hex hatch on Michigan's AuSable River. But can he get it to the boat? Yeah! Find out next on Adventure Guides Fishing Edition. Hello and welcome to Adventure Guides Fishing Edition. I'm your host, John Deach. Today we're here on the AuSable River near Grayling, Michigan. While Grayling, Michigan has its share of up-and-coming guides, it is famous for its old-school guides like Jay Stefan and Jerry Regan that are passing down their unique traditions here to a younger generation of guides.
I take great pride in the fact that I can put you in position, and I think once you have this experience where you don't have to wade,
Right.
You'll say, well, this is kind of nice.
While younger guides on the AuSable River are more apt to wade fish here, many of them still use the historic boats as part of a long tradition handed down from old-timers like Jerry and Jay.
Well, the river boats were created here in about 1871. They're only indigenous to the Grayling area. They've never been built anyplace else.
They were basically just knockoffs of the old logging sort of barges. Just been converted into a fishing craft. It's for hunting fish.
The live wells in these historic boats are reminders of a time when fly fishermen harvested the grayling species here into extinction more than a century ago.
Originally, the Svan family was involved in the design of the boat, and my great-granddad put a live well in the middle of the boat. Dog could both fish, but dump the fish in that live well to keep them alive until they got them on ice to ship them to Chicago.
While these old-school guides may pine for bygone days when they could keep fish, new-school guides like Dan Smith and Andy Partlow are strict adherents to catch-and-release ethics, even when catching big browns during the nighttime hex hatch in June.
Daddy, come on. Oh my goodness gracious. This is turning out to be a pretty nice little deal here. Just don't let him get off, D-Babe. Come on, doggy. He hasn't shown his face yet. Let's put him a lot of it. Nice.
Although old school and new school guides here on the AuSable may differ on the issue of catch and release regulations, they are cut from the same cloth. Both are united in their passion and dedication to the waters, their respect for the history of the river that came before them, and their vow to pass down a love of fishing to the next generation of anglers.
Thanks for joining us in New Zealand and Michigan to learn about these wonderful traditions. I'm your host, John Deach. We'll see you next time on Adventure Guides Fishing Edition.